We're going to keep it pretty casual, small group here, so I'll introduce myself in a second, but here are some of the things that I like to cover in this talk. For those of you who've never started a company, we'll talk a little bit about how to start a company. A second concept that I like to cover is how to optimize your life around learning. I think that's the most important thing you can do as an entrepreneur, and actually I think it's the most valuable thing you get as an entrepreneur is you get a much faster growth curve. Learning growth curve. And then the last piece is just talking a little bit about hustle and how hustling in general will allow you to win in life. So I don't know if I look it, but I didn't graduate that long ago. I just graduated 5 years ago, 2012 at UC Santa Barbara. So I clearly still remember playing beer pong and living in the dorms and being in your seat, being in classrooms like this and watching entrepreneurs or successful entrepreneurs speak to the class. And actually that was an inspiration for me. So that's why I'm here to hang out with you guys today. Hopefully I can share one or two tidbits that you may use later on in life, or at the very least, I'll leave my contact information. You can reach out to me if you start a company and you want to talk about it. So a little bit about myself. My co-founder and I started building businesses when we were in college. We didn't really know what we were doing at first. We were just a couple of college kids with no business experience. He was a computer science major. I was actually a pre-med major. And the first thing we built was a browser-based reading tool for students. So you could basically take your readings, upload it to your computer. This was cool at the time, I promise. Upload it to your computer. You could read it anywhere you wanted. You could annotate, you could highlight. And we showed it to some of our professors. They really liked it. They started using it in their classes. And that's how our first business was born. That company was called Studiously. So we started licensing that product to professors. We started licensing it to universities. And we did that for about 2 years. Oh look, none of the pictures show up. So these are humans right here. I like to show this slide because, I talk about myself and my accomplishments, but actually it takes a team and it takes a really great team to achieve anything. And I think that's core to your life as an entrepreneur, right? If you can surround yourself with really great people, you're going to guarantee success. If you surround yourself with not great people, then it's much harder to succeed. So in the last 3 years, Study Soup has grown to about 2 million student users every month. That's my current business. I'll tell you about it in a minute. Last year I was nominated to Forbes 30 Under 30 and do a little bit of speaking at universities just to talk about entrepreneurship. So that's a little bit about me. And obviously I'm supported by all these amazing people. So as far as what is Study Soup, I should probably give you guys a little background if you haven't looked it up yet. We started Study Soup as a note-taking marketplace. So basically we would go to colleges, we would hire note takers, like Bruce here, looks like he's a great note taker. He would post his notes on Study Soup and he could actually make money doing so, right? Classmates would buy his notes. Usually it's actually people typing on computers. Usually it's women because women are better note takers in general. So across 500 universities in the US, we have tens of thousands of students that are creating content and selling it on our marketplace. And that was step one, right? That's how we tested it. We tested it at 3 schools. After testing it at 3 schools, we applied to an accelerator called 500 Startups. Do you guys know what that is? Do you guys know what accelerators are? Do you know what Y Combinator is? Or YC? So I'll take this tangent. I'll tell you guys about accelerators. So Y Combinator is the world's kind of most famous one, and 500 Startups is probably the next one, but there's a lot of them out there. And basically, you have an idea, you have a startup that you think can be a really big opportunity, and you apply to one of these accelerators. They accept like 1 or 2% of companies, so it's pretty elite, hard to get into. And once you get accepted, they give you some money, and then they give you a platform. They introduce you to mentors, they introduce you to investors. It's just a really great network to get your business off the ground. So for example, like Dropbox, Airbnb, Reddit, these are all companies that came out of an accelerator, right? It was just a couple of young people who joined an accelerator to learn some of the basic fundamentals and then went out and built a really big company. So we joined one called 500 Startups, and that was kind of the first step towards raising funding. And since then, we've raised about $3 million in venture capital to fund the business. And to give you a sense of scale, we have So we raised about $3 million. We have like close to 100 employees across the U.S. or across like three countries, and we have about 1 to 3 million students use our platform every month. And we started as a note-taking marketplace, but our vision has always been to be this academic service platform where students can get any help that they need, right? So the way I see it is every student is going to be, I guess every person is going to be a student at some point in their life, and every student is going to run into a challenge, right? Whether you might be at home doing your chemistry homework, you might get stuck, you don't know who to turn to, your friend isn't very helpful, your teacher isn't responding to your emails. So Study Soup is becoming that place where you can turn to, you can get the content, or you can just come in, you can ask a question, and we have a grad student, somebody who can help you almost instantly get an answer. So that's what we're doing, and that's where we're headed. It's kind of a big problem. We started with this very specific, small solution, a marketplace, but once we started there, now we've been able to expand into other areas. So you guys shared a little bit about why you're interested in entrepreneurship. For me, I didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur around your age. I actually thought I wanted to be a doctor. I come from an immigrant family. That was my pathway in life. I was going to be a doctor. That was the only choice I had. But then I took a class kind of like this, and they had a great speaker series. I learned a little bit about entrepreneurship. I learned about the opportunity of building your own business. And frankly, I'm not very good with authority. Like, I was never good in the workplace because I don't listen to bosses. So I realized that I have to start my own business. That was as simple as it was. I didn't want to work for someone else. I had to start my own business. And that's how entrepreneurship started for me. For everybody, it's kind of a different path. This is a quote that I really like. You are the average of the closest 5 people in your network. You guys heard that quote before? It's totally true. And I put this quote up here because a lot of people will go through life just surrounded by the people that naturally surround them. Maybe you got put in the dorms with someone. Maybe you sat down at lunch with someone. And these are the people that become your friends that you spend the rest of your life with. And sometimes that's great. But what I'd encourage you guys to do is be very thoughtful about who you're hanging out with, who you're spending time with. And if you look at your current scenario or your current situation, you say, these aren't the best people to take me where I want to be in my career, then go out and actively seek the people that you want to be surrounded by. And that's kind of painful sometimes, right? Because we're social creatures, we just want good friend groups, we just want to be liked. So our natural thing is to go with the flow. But to optimize for kind of personal growth and business success, you have to do the difficult thing and sometimes say, hey, this isn't the best group of people for me to move my career forward. I'm going to be more thoughtful. I'm going to go out, I'm going to seek people that can help me become more successful in my career. So, whether you're starting your own company, whether you're joining somebody else's own company, whether you're a personal trainer or running like a coffee machine company, being surrounded by the right people will elevate your career and it'll elevate who you are. They've even done studies where they show basically, they've done like financial stuff. So this is like you and your personal growth. They've done financial studies where they take the average of 5 people's salaries 20 years into their career, and they find the same thing, that you're basically the median of the 5 closest people that you hang out with most, which is kind of weird. So the moral of the story is surround yourself with good people. You may be wondering, how do you do that, right? How do you surround yourself with good people? The cool thing about being a student in your position is your teachers, one, will surround you with good people, right? They bring in speakers. So when I was in school, when I was in your seat, our teacher would bring over speakers, and I made it a point to reach out to every single speaker that we had, right? You already have a platform, you're already being introduced, why not, right? You don't know if it's useful today, but it could be useful later on. And I had no idea, right? So the person would come speak, they'd leave their email, I'd send them a quick email and say, hey, thanks for speaking, this is who I am. And they would just respond, cool, thanks. But what happened to me was, I even remember this, we had a speaker, Jason Nazar, who was an alumni at our school. And he was an entrepreneur, he was fairly successful in LA. And once I started getting into entrepreneurship, I emailed him and said, hey, I loved your talk. Can I come see you in LA? Can we talk a little bit about this business that I'm thinking of starting? And for a while, he actually became a mentor for me. He would take calls with me once every couple of weeks. He would help guide my decision. And having people like that in your life is gonna create shortcuts for you, right? You can do things the hard way. You can read blog posts, you can do it yourself, you can kind of push through every wall. Or you can create this network of founders, of people who want you to succeed, who will give you the shortcuts, right? Like if you call me and you ask me and you're telling me that you're raising money and you tell me what your process is, I'm probably gonna save you, months of effort, if not weeks of effort. So that can happen at every stage in your life. Some people get really good at using mentors, and then some people need a lot of work. I needed a lot of work. I was always like very shy. I like to do things, or like very shy as far as asking for advice, right? I have a lot of pride, I'm competitive, I have a big ego sometimes. Those things got in the way of me learning quickly, and eventually I learned that if I just reach out to people, if I'm very honest about my problems and questions, they're gonna wanna help you, right? So this is a strategy of like meeting new people as a student. You guys have this amazing opportunity right now, right? You can email anybody in the world, pretty much, and tell them and get a meeting with them because you're a college student, and everybody wants to help college students, right? You guys are here, you're studying, if you email me, you're probably a go-getter, and I want to help you. And this applies for everybody. This is like, like if you emailed Obama, like he might think this as well. Maybe he won't take a meeting with you, but most big company CEOs feel this way, right? Like Steve Jobs has a story where he called the CEO of Atari, and he basically said, hey, I need some parts, or I need X, Y, and Z. Will you send it to me? And he just sent it to him for free when they built the first Apple, computers. And this is real. This still applies. So my challenge to you guys, this is like, you guys have to do something after I leave. You guys have homework now. My challenge to you is to pick 5 people that you feel are a little bit out of your reach. They could be CEOs of local companies, or if you're into politics, they could be politicians, and email them and say, hey, this is me, I'm a college student. Can you meet for 15 minutes? I want to learn about your career because I'm interested in your career. Or I'm interested in being an entrepreneur, or I'm interested in building a coffee business, so I'm going to email the Pete's guy, or I'm going to email somebody who started a personal training business before. So pick 5 people. Don't skip this. This is like maybe one of the most important things that you can do in your entrepreneurial career is reach out to people that you don't know to get help. And right now, you guys have the best platform and reason to do so. And I know some of you guys are going to go home, and like some of you will do it. Some of you will think about doing it, and then you'll start coming up with excuses not to do it, because I do this all the time to myself. But just push through that, right? Find 5 people, get their email addresses, and don't just email them once. Your goal is to email them up to 4 times until they respond to you, right? Because just emailing them doesn't get you off the hook. You need a response, right? You need to set up a meeting, so do it. So I highly recommend it. I have a friend who sometimes he emails, he's at my stage, he runs a very successful business. He'll email people up to 15 times. You look at chains, he'll like email the CEO of Coca-Cola like 15 times, and then on the 15th time, the person responds. Every 3 to 5 days. So give it a try,
What about Instagram?
What's that? Instagram?
Yeah.
I'm not big on, I don't personally use Instagram a bunch, but maybe there is an opportunity. Do people respond? Do like awesome people respond on Instagram? I think it depends who you want to reach. If you want to reach like an Instagram influencer, maybe that's the way to do it. If you want to reach, like the CEO of Smart Water, I think email might be a better channel.
Yeah.
If you can get their email.
Yeah.
Most people, you can find their email. Just Google how to find people's emails. There's a ton of great tutorials out there. It's a very useful skill, I promise you. Yeah, seriously. Challenge. Remember that. Please do it. It'll be very good for you. Cool. So on that note, so as I said, there's certain things that you're going to do as an entrepreneur that are a little bit difficult that most people would fear, right? And fear, at the end of the day, is going to be the number one limiter of everything. So for me, early on when I was an entrepreneur, I feared asking people for advice, which meant that I spent a lot more time doing difficult things. Like we try to do sales to universities, we try to do sales to professors. If I had not been scared of asking for advice, it would have saved me months, maybe a year. I probably would have saved a year of time if I just went to somebody who'd done sales before, if I'd went to people who build education businesses. And in my second business, which is Study Soup, we got really good at that. You know, I constantly ask people for advice. I have investors. I message them for even the smallest things. So fear is one of those things. So that's one example of fear, but fear is like one of those things that will limit most people from achieving anything in life, right? Fear can be as simple as like, there's this person that I really like in my class. I feel like we get along, but I won't ask them on a date, and that could be your future wife or husband. You know, that's one example of fear. Or you can be in the workplace and maybe you believe you want a promotion or you want to be in a different position, but you fear asking for it, so you'll never get it, right? So there's a lot of different drills you can do to overcome that. One of them is this challenge that I recommended to you guys, right? Reaching out to people you don't know. So fear is really going to be your greatest enemy in life, right? Anytime you think you want to do something, you feel like it's a good idea, just do it. Just go do it and train yourself to work on that, okay? And then obviously your best friend is hustle. Like just pure hard, there's nothing that's ever going to overcome pure hard work, right? When you start a company, you'll probably be working like 14 to 16 hours a day. You got to love it. But then again, it's more fun than doing investment banking 14, 16 hours a day, right?
Right.
Yeah. You've done both, so you know.
This is the best.
So for us, like an example of us hustling, there's been multiple times in our company history where we really had to hustle to get something. So 500 Startups is one of those accelerators that I was telling you about. They have a 2% acceptance rate. So for every 1,000 companies that apply, 20 get in, right? It's very, very tough, and these are real companies. So we knew that as a couple of young entrepreneurs, this would be really helpful for us to raise funding. It would validate us. It's kind of like going to Harvard Business School. It just like stamps your resume, and when you go to other investors, they're more likely to take you seriously. That's why it's important. And I guess taking a step back, like a lot of the stuff I'm talking about is for venture funded businesses. Not all businesses should be venture funded. You don't need investment, and if you don't need investment, you definitely don't need these guys. But if you're trying to start a fast growth Uber, Airbnb, Study Soup style business, you see what I did there? Then this is helpful. Like applying to an accelerator is helpful. So we knew that it was going to be helpful. We knew that it was extremely competitive. We weren't sure whether we would get picked or not, right? You could just easily get lost. So what we did, our kind of story of hustle here was after applying to get an interview and to get in, what I did is I reached out to, like 60 companies who had graduated from 500 Startups. And I found them on LinkedIn, I found them on their website, I found their emails, and I spent a week just compiling this information and reaching out to these people and basically saying, hey, we just applied to this program, we're interested in it, would you be open to talking about it? Sure, fellow entrepreneur, they're always down to help you, you're probably a little bit younger, you're probably a little bit newer. People want to help you when you reach out. So of those 60, I probably got on the phone with 20 of them, and somewhere in the conversation I would ask, hey, will you recommend us to this program? Which is like, not very common, people don't really do this, but I said, hey, will you email the partners, let us know that you think we're awesome, and they would do that. We had about 10 people email the partners of 500 Startups. So when we went into the interview, as soon as we walked in, one of the partners was like, Jesus, Study Soup, like we've heard about you from everybody. We had created this like environment where it sounded like we were just blowing up and Study Soup was the best company that they could possibly talk to. And sure enough, like we got in after that, right? Like if you're the person making the decision and all the companies that you already graduated are reaching out to you, you're very likely to approve that company. So that was one example. If you really want something, there's always a strategy on how to like optimize around it. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you describe the process of like going through something like a 500 startup?
What it's like?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
a day-to-day kind of.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about the program. It's most of these are 3-month programs, 3 or 4 month programs. 500 Startups, they have an office in the heart of San Francisco. All of the companies move in together, so 26 companies move in. They give you some money up front, and then there's a variety of like activities and courses and networking events. They bring in speakers, like local awesome investors, local awesome entrepreneurs, and they just create this environment where they try to maximize synergy around whatever you may need. And every company needs something different, right? So you may need marketing help. They'll bring in the best marketing person in the Bay Area. You may need sales help. You may just need some funding and you want to learn how to fundraise, and at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want with that. You can just sit at your desk and work all day, or you can go network, you can meet the other founders, and that's really where the benefit comes from, right? Like every day we were basically in the trenches with other really interesting founders, building really interesting companies. So we could learn from each other, but we could also, share investor information, or just how do you deal with this? How do you hire for an engineer? How do you pay your first employees when you don't have any money? So very things that are very basic questions you can overcome together at a faster rate. And that's why they're awesome.
Anybody from Pace in that program?
So not in mine, but in the previous one.
I thought Rob wasn't in your class.
Rob was 1 year older. He was one of the first people that I met.
One of my students, Rob Couch, you could see his picture from the pitch contest, was in 500 startups and got a lot out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Now I think he lives in New York. So yeah, that was one good example of how we hustled. And there's probably been a few other kind of monumental, inflection points, right? Startups are this thing where, Brian Chesky, the founder of Airbnb, has this talk where he talks about 1,000 days to overnight success. Airbnb from the outside to all of us looks like an overnight success, right? They went from nothing to all of a sudden being bigger than Marriott, essentially, or having a market cap bigger than the Marriott hotels, which took 100 years to build. But he talks about for 1,000 days, for almost 3 years, they had no success that nobody ever heard of, right? And in a startup, that's what it's like, right? It's not sexy. Nobody's, there's no fun videos of you just working every day at your computer, finding the emails of the 20 people that you need to reach out to and then harassing them nonstop until they respond to, right? Or finding your first salesperson. All of this stuff takes a ton of work, takes a lot of time, but there are these inflection points that make your company grow. And from the outside, people only see the inflection points, so they only see when you get to the top. So 500 startups was an inflection point for us. Raising money for us was an inflection point. And then there's growth inflection points as well throughout your company. Another quote that I really like is by Warren Buffett. He says, "Life is like a snowball. All you need is wet snow and a long hill." Warren Buffett is the king of loving compound interest. You guys all know what compound interest is? Compound interest is essentially what you get at a bank when you put your money into it, right, from a savings account. And the reason I like this quote is because it's not just financial, right? Education, learning, and experience all have compound learning effects. So if you guys are really aggressive right now, really thoughtful, really active about your personal learning and your personal growth, and every single day you're challenging yourself and you're saying, what could I do today to be better? What could I do today to move towards my entrepreneurial goal? And you do that every single day, your growth curve, personal learning growth curve, will be so much higher than your peers, right? If every single day you challenge yourself, and maybe you do my challenge for every day this week, right? Then you will already be months ahead of somebody else, right? You email 20 people, it'll take one of your peers 3 months to reach out to 20 random people, right? And if you if you just did that in 5 days, imagine what you can do with the next 5 days and the next 5 days. And all of those learnings don't go away, they all stack on each other, right? So I should show a graph of this, by the way. There's a really good graph out there for how you learn as an entrepreneur, right? If you join a normal company, your learning path is linear, right? You learn at a linear rate, maybe you get promoted and then you learn at a linear rate. If you join a startup or you run a startup, your learnings are exponential, right? Because you basically have no idea what's going on every single day and you have to figure it out yourself. So your learning is more like this. It's an exponential growth curve. So I'd encourage you guys to be very thoughtful about that, right? So for me, when I was in college, I ran this entrepreneurship group, and I was the guy who basically would invite speakers into the class like this. For me, it was a way to connect with an entrepreneur, so I could reach out to Jason, or I could reach out to an investor and say, hey, I'm at Pace, I have this entrepreneurship group. They would love to hear from you. Will you come by and speak to us? So it forced me to reach out to random people. I would create a little relationship with this individual, even though it wasn't a big relationship, but it was something. And I would connect them to my group and they would come and talk. So for me, it was a way to learn from these people. And now, years later, I have this amazing network of people that I could reach out to, right? That's what I did when I was in college. Now I run this group called Junto, which is very similar, right? I host a dinner with very successful founders that have usually raised or sold companies for 50 or $100 million. It's usually a group of 6, 7, 8 people. And for me, it's a platform, again, to invite really interesting people and to learn from them and build my network, right? Those are three key components. So if you can do that, I highly encourage you to do it. Do it with a few friends, invite somebody that you respect, have them come talk to you. You're a student, they're gonna love to do that, right? Now that I'm older, people love to learn from each other. People that are founders or entrepreneurs, they love to learn, right? They wanna hear about your business challenges. I wanna hear about what you've learned in your business, what you've learned in your business. So we'll sit around the table, we'll talk about these things, we'll learn from each other, and through it, we'll just develop a stronger network. So think of ways in your life how you can do this. How can you host a dinner once a week or something once a week where you can bring people and you can invite people that matter to help you become a better person? And that's just one example of compound learning, compound interest in your life. So it sounds like a lot of you guys are interested in entrepreneurship, so I don't know if this applies as much, but a question that I get a lot is whether someone should start their company now or go join a bigger company, maybe Facebook, Google, or one of the local media companies, or whatever it may be. My answer to this is usually based around, do you have kind of a burning desire or a company that you're really passionate about that you want to build yourself? And if the answer is a clear no and you're really just uncertain, then it's okay. You can join another big company. Just make sure that when you're joining a company, you're optimizing around one thing: learning, right? That's the key that's the theme of this conversation. Learning, right? So join a company where the smartest, most driven people are working, right? It could be Google, it could be Facebook, it could be a smaller company with 50 people where you're just blown away by how smart and amazing these people are, because again, it's gonna accelerate your learning cycle. And then later when you do start your company, you're gonna be surrounded by these amazing smart people that you can cherry pick. So that's kind of the decision, right? Is do you know what you wanna do? If not, join a company, optimize for learning, and then do something later. There's a but in there. So a couple of you guys have done small businesses on the side. And I recommend that you try that, right? Whether it's selling drones on Amazon, that's a great example of it, right? You can sell anything on Amazon, right? You can sell speakers, you can buy and sell speakers on Amazon, you can buy something on Alibaba and sell it on Amazon. And if you're not gonna start your own company, try something like that, right? Try selling things online, try selling things to your friends, because it allows you to kind of taste blood, basically, right? I'm glad this is an entrepreneurship implementation class, because just learning how to buy drones, post them, market them on Amazon, and sell them teaches you so many skills and advances you so much further than one of your peers who's never done anything like that, right? Or never sold anything. Teaches you pricing, market dynamics, marketing, right? Teaches you how do you buy from someone? How long does it take? How do you ship and package something properly? What do you do if there's a return? How do you bake that into your P&L statement, right? Those are just the main themes, but there's 1,000 little data points in there that people take for granted that you would learn doing something simple like that, So I guess my advice is, if you're not starting your own company and just running for it, do something on the side. It doesn't have to be a huge idea. It doesn't have to change the world. You can sell something on Etsy, but it'll give you kind of that confidence to say, yeah, I can take any product. I can make my own money if I need to. I don't need a job. I could just quit and do this little thing on the side. Having that confidence is really important for your entrepreneurial career.